Good afternoon. It's a national holiday here in South Korea, the anniversary of the March 1st independence movement. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Ji-young. Let's begin with our top story. South Korea now sees Japan as a cooperative partner for future prosperity rather than as its colonial oppressor of the past. That's according to President Yoon speech on Wednesday morning, marking the 104th anniversary of Korea's March 1st, or Samil Independence Movement, a series of protests against Imperial Japan's colonization of the country in 1919. At a ceremony held in central Seoul, Yoon called for reflection on the country's tragic past stripped of sovereignty, saying the sacrifices made for independence must be remembered. To move forward into the future, the president said, Japan has now become South Korea's partner that shares universal values.
복합 위기와 심각한 북핵 위협 등 안보 위기를 극복하기 위한 한미일 3자 협력이 그 어느 때보다 중요해졌습니다.
Yoon stressed the need to stand in solidarity with countries that share universal values in order to contribute in promoting the freedom of citizens around the world and common prosperity for all humankind. March 1st is a day that carries special meaning for Koreans in remembrance of the Independence Day movement against Japanese rule back in 1919. A host of ceremonies take place across the country to honor those who sacrificed their lives and fought for Korea's freedom. With the removal of social distancing measures, people are taking to the streets once more to take part in the ceremonies and celebrations. Our Moon has the details.
104 years ago, thousands of students and leaders alike were massacred by the Japanese police force and army as they gathered in the streets of Seoul in solidarity against the annexation of the Korean peninsula by Japan. Every year on March 1st, South Korea hangs the national flag from buildings and on the streets in remembrance. And this year, people can once more see Korean flags filling the streets outside Hyochang Park in Seoul, commonly dubbed Park of Heroes. One of the independence activists laid to rest in the park is Kim Gu, the head of the Provisional Government of the Republic of Korea, first established on April 11, 1919. The independence movement of March 1st provided a catalyst for its establishment, and the National Memorial of the Korean Provisional Government in its exhibitions shows how it was done and the key figures behind it. More than 200 copies of the Declaration of Independence were drawn up in 1919, but on display here are the four main copies. The first was announced in Tokyo on February 8th, and the second was read aloud at the start of the March 1st independence movement by 33 representatives. The third was issued in Jilin, China, and the fourth is the Provisional Government Declaration. According to the director of the Memorial Center, South Korea's quest for independence through the press went beyond Asia to all four corners of the world.
I hope that people will be able to understand that the independence movement didn't just happen within the country. It happened in every place where Koreans were in the world.
Visitors to the exhibition can learn more about the provisional government and leave behind their own traces in history by coloring in a wall mural. With the fight for independence against foreign oppression happening around the world even today, March 1st and what it stands for is still of great significance. Moon, Arirang News.
South Korea continues to log trade deficit, with February being the 12th straight month as imports outweigh exports. This comes following weak demand for the country's key export items, semiconductors, as well as a rise in energy imports. Shin Se-byuk reports.
Yet another grim economic figure coming out of South Korea's trade sector. Data from the Trade Ministry on Wednesday shows that South Korea posted a trade deficit for 12 months straight in February. That is the longest streak since the 1997 Asian financial crisis. It's mainly due to the country's falling exports, which fell for the fifth consecutive month in February. Outbound shipments fell 7.5% on year to just over $50 billion last month. The ministry attributed this to weak global demand for chips amid an economic slowdown. In fact, exports of semiconductors, the country's key export item, plunged over 42% last month on falling demand and a drop in chip prices. It also marks a seventh straight month of falling chip exports. Imports, meanwhile, rose 3.6% on year to $55.4 billion in February on growing energy imports. The country's energy imports surged almost 20% on year last month amid the cold weather. South Korea relies heavily on imports for its energy needs. Taking into account decreasing exports and increasing imports, South Korea logged a trade deficit of $5.3 billion last month. The Trade Ministry last month forecast a 4.5% decline in exports this year. Despite such a depressing projection, the South Korean government has set an export target of $685 billion for this year, up 0.2% from last year's total. This came as President Yoon Suk-yeol called on all ministries to focus on promoting exports and winning overseas contracts in 12 key sectors, including nuclear power, arms, overseas construction, and agriculture. 신새벽, Arirang News.
For travelers coming in from China starting Wednesday, South Korea is lifting its requirements for PCR tests on arrival. This according to local health authorities as the COVID-19 situation has improved in China. However, travelers are still required to take a COVID-19 test before arriving up until March 10th, as authorities want to monitor the situation after restrictions have been lifted. Tests have been needed since January 2nd for those coming in from China. There have also been other restrictions, like a suspension on short-term visas and a limit on the number of flights to Korea, but these curbs have also been removed. That's all from us for now. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with more live news at 6 p.m.